in a place and we acknowledge publicly that we do not have a community because we are not capable of acting as a community, but what we have is a school for learning how to have a community. Because that's what we really need. That's what's not there. How do we learn the skills of working together and living together and creating commitment and community and consensus? See, I don't care what kind of a structure you have or what kind of ways you have of making people do what you want them to do. If there is not a real consensus in the community, it will fall apart. It's just a matter of time. Now, that's what's happening in the whole Western society right now. The demons tried to build a consensus of, okay, everybody's out for themselves, and the name of the game is material enjoyment, and the guy with the most toys wins. The most power, the most money, the most influence, the most servants, the most stuff, the most land, the most this, the most that. But as you can see, that doesn't really generate community. What it generates is a bunch of people running around competing with each other. And that's not very nice to live in. In fact, it's a mess because you're constantly fighting against other people. And there's no sense of relationship. So what we have to do is build the skills that allow us to have nice relationships with all different kinds of people. Not just people who are like us, the same age, the same socioeconomic status, the same tastes, or the same style, lifestyle, or whatever. No, that's bogus community. That's hiding from community. I'm hiding from community by just being around people who are similar to me. That's not really community. Real community means I can relate to anybody in a healthy, positive, enjoyable way because I know who I am, I know who they are, and we can establish a relationship. Now, there is a technology in the Vedas that's given for that. It's called varṇāśrama-dharma. So that means you have to accept a varnashram designation. Your sense of identity in the social context has to be based on your occupational division, the varna, and the spiritual division, the āśram. Then you can codify or systematize a whole set of relations with other people in the same system. You see? But without that system, without that context, here we go again, without that context, the meaning of the individual is always unclear. The actual identity of the individual is always a matter of guesswork. And of course, rascals are going to exploit this, take advantage. So there's so many reasons why varnashram is a good idea. And actually, varnashram exists everywhere. It's natural. I mean, everywhere you go in the world, there are people who are priests or intellectuals. There are people who are administrators or kings or warriors. There are people who are bankers and farmers and tradesmen. And there are people who are servants or who are like artisans or craftsmen or laborers. Those four divisions of human society exist everywhere. All we're doing is giving them a name and saying, look, there's this one, this one, this. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Well, what's the problem with that? That's not the caste system. The caste system is something different. The caste system means you're born in this kind of family and that's going to be your job and that's it. There's no further discussion. But the Varna system is a meritocracy, and it's based on the kind of work that a person's actually suited for. Why trap somebody in a job that they're going to hate for their whole life when you could simply take them out of this bucket, put them in this bucket over here, and they have some occupation that they love. They can make their own decision, or even better, they can get help from the brahmanas who give them different kinds of tests and determine what kind of person they are. Astrology, Jyotish, is very easy to tell. So, it's not really difficult. But what's lacking in today's world is the political will to do this. We saw this in ISKCON. Because if I don't like my position in this society, I can just walk out the door. I can vote with my feet, I can go away, and I can live however I want to. So there's no need to, or no, how can I say, there's no compelling reason to accept the authority of the group. To work in a group, you have to accept authority. It's just the way it is. That's the thing about groups. Somebody's in charge and somebody else has to follow. So if you're a leader, you have to be qualified. And that's another thing that's wrong with society today. The leaders aren't qualified. They're cheaters. So in Vaishnava society, if the same thing goes on, then why even bother changing? The leaders are also cheaters. Huh? So if they're cheaters in the temple and they're cheaters outside, then what the heck? I might as well live outside, and at least I get cheated in the way I want. So the whole thing breaks down at that point. So we have to have qualified leaders. That means they have to be properly trained. That takes a long time. There's no shortcut. You can't just, put some white clothes and some beads on a guy and paint some tilak on their face and okay, you're a brahmana. No. It takes a long time. It takes years to train someone to be a brahmana. Even if they have the qualification, even if they have the nature of a brahmana, it still takes, 10 years or so, 20 years maybe, to train somebody up to actually act as a brahmana. What does a brahmana do? He's a teacher. He's a teacher, he performs religious ceremonies, and he guides and counsels people how to live a fulfilling and highly spiritual life. You don't get to do that overnight. Even if you have the talent, it has to be developed and trained. So how are we going to have communities all over the world if we don't even have one community where everyone's following all these things? See, first we got to establish one. Then we can go out and establish more. It makes sense to talk about establishing more. This is a very tough decision for me. Since I started preaching, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I have been trying to get people to start communities, or at least take up the preaching and spread the preaching. I haven't had much success with that, even though I've been asking. And I think it's we finally have isolated the real issue. We don't know how to do it. When I say we, I mean as a community. We don't know how to establish a community. So that means that training has to be there, and that training can only happen in person. It can't happen online. Yeah, we can get together online and we can talk about philosophy and we can encourage individual practices. But as far as making communities, no, that takes physical presence. Somebody has to come here, like the devotees who stay with us here have made so much advancement in such a short time. But we see the devotees out there who are going it alone are making, they're making progress, but it's a struggle. They get a lot of static from people around them. There's resistance. There's contrary influences. Can I get something to drink? And they have to constantly, they deal with the stress of supporting themselves and, so many problems. So really what we need is a residential training school. And so that means we have to make one. And really the only place in the world that we can afford to do that right now is India. And India also has other advantages as well. The feng shui or the vastu situation of India, and especially the southern hills, Vindalai Hills, are really just perfect because, thank you, they're cool, they're clean, they slope toward the east or northeast. There's a lot of Vaishnavas there, a lot of Brahmanas. Vedic culture is still being practiced. It's popular. It's the majority culture. So, if we're entering a time, which I believe we are entering a time of tremendous change and chaos even, then it makes sense to be surrounded by Vaishnavas because, Krishna says, I protect my devotees. Paritranaya sadhunam. I protect the devotees, the sadhus. That's why Krishna descends to this planet. And right now he's descended as his holy name. So we want to find that place where people are chanting the holy name of Krishna. And follow